Kind of going in a different direction, I kind of wanted to go back to your involvement in the creation of the Paperclip project, or the Holocaust program at Whitwell Middle School. Obviously, that's one of the most high-profile programs in Whitwell history. Obviously, and you being pioneers of that. What can you kind of tell us about its inception? And kind of like how it came about in your role.
Yeah, in 1998, we have a program in our school that is like parent involvement, and parents come together and they sort of talk about things that each school needs. It's an improvement plan, and one of the things that was happening at that time was the beginning of when we started seeing school shootings, especially in the South. And there was one in somewhere in Mississippi or Alabama, and it was in a town very much like Whitwell, very homogeneous. I mean, it was mostly white kids, mostly Christian. So our parents were worried about that. So they wanted something to teach a little bit of diversity in a non-diverse area. So Miss Hooper, who was the principal at the time, came to me and she said, I would like you to go to this conference that was coming in Chattanooga. And it was called I Earn, which stands for International Education and Resource Network. And it's like a huge project that's made up of a lot of little projects. So they had this in Chattanooga, and each day you could go to all these different sessions and hear about people's projects they were working on. So I went to some like that were on air pollution, oil sampling. Some of them would read books and they would discuss them across. And of course, this is back in the time when we didn't have a lot of email or a lot of whatever. It was pen pals kind of thing writing. So I went to one that was a Holocaust genocide. And what it was kids from all around the world at different schools who were reading the same book, discussing them, and they were coming up with a paper that they had written and they gave because at the end of all of these little projects, you had to have something, you had to have a solution, or you had to have a product. So they had written a paper about this book that they were reading and all these kids' thoughts on it. So I'm sitting there listening to this, and they had a Holocaust survivor who came and spoke that day. And she was from Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And I became very, very good friends with her before she passed. And I listened to her and I was just blown away because I'd grown up my entire life as a white male in the southern, South, in rural Tennessee or rural Georgia. And so I'm listening to this and I'm listening to this lady's tales of, she's a Jewish woman. And I'm like, started thinking to myself, I don't know that I'd ever met a Jewish person. I don't know that I'd ever been to school with a Jewish person. And if I did, I didn't know they were Jewish. And so I came back and told Ms. Hooper, I said, I want to teach about the Holocaust and how Jews were persecuted and they were the focus of the final solution. And she was like, okay. So that year is when we began the project and we taught the first year. Now, the first year, because it is a controversial topic and it has a lot of hard pictures and hard subjects. And honestly, we were very, uneducated when it comes to the Holocaust. And so we made parents come to the meetings with their kids. And all this was after school. So the parents had to come. If the parents couldn't come, the child couldn't come. So we met. We studied it the entire year. I read 100 books, I bet you, the first year. And at the end of the year, we asked the students, said, what did you not understand? What could we do better? What, that kind of thing. And they said the thing that they had a hard time understanding was the numbers, because we throw out 1.5 million children were killed, 6 million Jews were killed, 11.5 million victims. We threw out all these numbers and it meant nothing to them.
Yeah.
And so we thought, like good elementary teachers will do, if you want a kid to see what 3 is, you take 2 apples, you add another apple, and you got 3 apples. So we thought, we'll do something concrete, put something in their hand, let them see what 6 million and 11.5 million look like. Again, we were very naive because to collect 6 million of something is very, very hard, and it takes a long time. And we figured that out after about the first year, because after the first year, we were up to like 700,000. And I was thinking, this is going to be a long, I'll be retired by the time we get to 6 million. And then there was a lady who saw I created this very, very horrible website, I'm sure. Back when you had to do the GeoCities and all that, it was a very rudimentary website, but it was seen by a lady she was a Holocaust survivor that lived in Washington, D.C., Lena Geter, and she actually had taught with Montessori. And she met every week with the Schroeders, who were White House correspondents for newspapers in Austria and Germany. And she met with them every week to eat. And then when they met, she pulled this paper out she'd printed off, and it was a picture of the website I'd made. And she said, I want you guys to look into this and help these children. So that's when they contacted us. And then the ball started rolling, and their friends who worked for the Washington Post and all this came, and it blew up. And within 6 or 7 months, we had collected over 15 million paper clips. And we had people from all over the world coming in. We had survivors. Because one of the very first things I'd ever done was I'd gotten a phone call one day, and they said, we want to do an interview with you on NPR. And of course, I had no clue what NPR was. So I asked, and I said, what is it? And they said, this is National Public Radio. And I said, okay. So I thought to myself, this is like PBS show or something nobody watches. And so I got on this NPR program, and they asked me all these questions, and I was telling them we'd never had a Holocaust survivor, never met one. We only had one book in our library on the Holocaust. It was like an old children's book. And within a year, we had 15,000 Holocaust books. We are now the second largest Holocaust library in the South.
Wow.
Yeah. And we've had, I'd say, over 50 or 60 Holocaust survivors, camp liberators that have come to Whitwell. In the film, Tom Bosley talks about a letter that he had written, and he actually was on tour with On Golden Pond, an off-Broadway show, and he was in Birmingham, and he realized how close it was to Whitwell. So he rented limousines and brought his entire cast to Whitwell to meet us. Al Gore, he brought his advisors and came to Whitwell and taught a class to our kids when he was the vice president. So we've been very blessed. And this happened at a time when going viral was new, and it sort of took on a life of its own. And we were all like, what the heck's going on? Because it took on a life of its own, and we were just sort of along for the ride. But our kids have been very blessed. We've sent kids to South Africa who met with Nelson Mandela. We've had kids go to Germany, Poland, anywhere just about in the world you can think of. We've had kids go and speak about this project.
But one of the things that I kind of wanted to talk about for me myself is kind of being a part of that, especially like being a part of, or kind of like right before the document came out, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that I was like in 5th grade, and kind of like, if you've ever been like just around something like viral, and this isn't like a video, like this is like something that is like, it's like world changing, right? That it's like a big deal, but you can't really kind of fit your head around like how big it is. But just being a part of that, like feeling the spirit, like that spirit of like that you're part of something that's so much bigger than you, right? That means so much to so many people, but you still can't, like fathom what it means. And I remember whenever I was in 8th grade, for us, and opportunity comes for us to go to Boston, and I was so fortunate to be among the, those that went first. The school in Boston came to sing at Whitwell Middle School.
Mm-hmm.
There for a few days. I remember that was my like our first interaction with like kosher food. We didn't know what that was, and then we
Right.
Orthodox and unorthodox Jews. I mean, like they came with their own food. I was, well, what do we do whenever we say get pizza? It's a pizza party. We trucks, and they get like this refrigerated food. Like, wait, they're not gonna eat pizza too? And like, no, they can't do that. Like, wait, why? So I mean, it was just like a huge learning experience. And then we went up to to Boston, and we stayed at an amazing hotel. I mean, just to like think about that experience, we got to meet Holocaust survivors. We got to go to like a Jewish private school. We got to go to a bar mitzvah. Like there were like just so many different experiences that we got to do in a week. I know that all of us were like just so grateful. But honestly, it all comes from taking a risk,
Mhm.
taking a chance, and kind of being, you making a website for, I think that is such a big takeaway from this whole thing is to, especially in today's world, where there's a lot of viral stuff, but I think it is just to take a risk. And honestly, like for all of the people and all the students that have went through, we're so grateful to you guys. I know that I wouldn't be here in Columbia, South Africa, had it not been for a seed that you guys had planted, that and studying things that are bigger than oneself. For me to even kind of think that this is like a possibility, I think that and this is just for everybody. Like even for teachers, for example, there's this, it's big but it's small, and I think that a lot of us don't take opportunities that are there because
Mhm.
for a lot of us, it's because they are invisible. We don't know that that's there. So for example, we wouldn't apply for a federal grant, or kind of look for a voucher or these things because we just
Right.
don't know about them. And I think that that is, if you want to do something, research it. If you want to be something, it. What is it? How can you kind of get there? A little bit of organic planning, if you will. To be able to do something that that maybe somebody in your family hasn't done before, or that your school has never done before.
Absolutely. And you're a good example of that, Rocky. I mean, I think you're a great example of somebody that really branched and spread their wings and has explored the world around them and taken advantage of what's out here and what's out in the world. I'm proud of you. I'm proud to death of what you've become as a man and what you've done. I think you've made a great show for your life.
Thanks, Coach. I mean, the like one of the mottos of the Paperclip project is changing the world one class at a time. All of us, even if not all of us have kind of gone all over the world. There have been a lot of us that have, but I mean, like those small seeds, always kind of like you, and as a teacher especially, there are certain things you can see, for example, achieving an objective, right? Like a learning objective, whether it's like, okay, copy this in your notebook, or at the end of this unit, do you pass the test? Things that you can kind of like see, like achievements. But as teachers, you never kind of know how far these seeds that you're planting, these lessons that you're kind of giving to students, where exactly is going to take them. And we'll never know. I mean, like I said, to you and everybody else that was involved, Miss Roberts, you know, Whitwell honestly is very indebted, and to be honest, like the whole Sequatchie Valley, the state of Tennessee, the United States, is very indebted to you guys in your work. And I know that you guys cannot fathom just because you can't see. This paperclip has done for the world at large, But I mean, like I said, one of the greatest takeaways that I can say for that for everyone is to take a risk. Go to that conference, for example. You never know what you're going to get from it. One of the other things is to share. Is to whether it's sitting down with a kid at lunch, being like, "Hey, here's what I learned. What do you know?
Mhm.
What kind of doors those things can open." And like I said, just being vulnerable to the possibility to be vulnerable with with your students, with your family. But what is some advice that you would give a younger David Smith, kind of with now all of your experience as an administrator, a teacher, principal, an assistant principal, kind of like what exactly would you tell your younger self?
I think soak in, enjoy life a little more, and soak it in because it goes by so quick. And a lot of times when great things were happening, I was so worried about getting this done or what was coming next or worrying about, 2 weeks from now. I didn't enjoy the moment and I didn't enjoy the moments. And I think now I would tell myself, slow down, enjoy the moments, celebrate a little bit. Because I've never really celebrated the things that have gone on because I'm always on the next thing. And I tell kids all the time, you hear the saying, be the change you want to see. And I talk to kids all the time about if you want to see change in your community, then get involved in your community. I try to get some of these younger people to run for office in our local area to get a fresher perspective. And honestly, that's how we're going to make changes in this community are going to be younger people. And I try to get them involved I said, anytime you have the chance to be on a board or run for something or to volunteer or whatever, do it. Take that advantage and see see the fruits of your labor.
No, Coach, I just wanted to really thank you once again for kind of giving your time to a podcast. And, me as, one of your former students, one of your former players, I'm forever indebted to you. I mean, there are so many people that I'd like to thank, former coaches Shetty, Coach Floyd, Coach Miller. You guys have, so instrumental. And I know that there's a lot of people that I'm forgetting. T-Bone's dad, like from Pee Wee football, anybody and everybody that has been instrumental in my life. And I'm trying to like pull as many people that I can together. You, Miss Roberts, Miss Hooper, Miss Crabtree as well. There's so many people, but I really want to get these Whitwell stories out there. Because I know that you guys' experience honestly need once again with the world. But I just really wanted to thank you for your time again, Coach. Appreciate you.
Hey, no problem, Rocky. Take care of yourself, buddy.
Thank you. Thanks.
See ya.